Did you enjoy all 3 days of your weekend?
I did. I got to spend a lot of time with my kid.
Excellent.
He woke up at 3 a.m. on Monday saying, I will not miss my first snow day. This is going to be awesome. So, yeah. It was fun. I guess everyone else is still enjoying their 3 days. We only have 8 people here of our 18.
Well, you are the best.
You are the best.
So.
Yes, you get bonus points. Participation points. Yes,
Really?
don't forget. Participation being in class, 5% of your grade. Yes, check. You're here. Okay, things coming up for Thursday. You have a 3-minute presentation you're going to be giving. You should know the game topic. You should already have hopefully sketched out some kind of story, some kind of things on some note cards. You've got an idea, maybe you've got some slides down. Find those pictures, find those things. Any questions about what we're doing on Thursday? We will be starting at 9:45, so encourage those people who aren't here. They need to be here at 9:45. They might be giving their presentation first, and if they're not here, they don't get to give their presentation. So, I need your slides tomorrow. At least a link to your Google document so I can get things all set up. You can still revise it up until the time of the presentations, but I need that link early tomorrow so we can get that set. If I don't have your link, then it's probably likely that you won't get to present. So, yes.
What time tomorrow?
I can't remember. I think I sent it to you in an email, but
Okay.
I think it was 5 o'clock tomorrow. I should be able to put it all together. Okay. Any questions about Newton's cradles? Hopefully I had a chance to go back and look at those from what we did last time. There were some physics issues. Physics are being resolved. Any lingering questions about physics and what was happening with Newton's cradle? Starting to come together. Get that submitted today. Any questions about marble mania? Things happening strangely with your marbles? Yes.
I had an issue where I have an elevator sort of thing that brings my marbles back to the top, and I have an animation that does that, and there's a marble that starts in the elevator, and it gets all the way to the top. But then when the elevator goes back down, it doesn't pick up the next marble, it just goes through it. Is that because I didn't set up the animations correctly? Or?
It goes through the next marble. I had issues with my objects not recognizing collisions as well. It seems to be frustrating, and I think it's related to the simulated aspect of the physics engine. If you have two objects and they're running towards each other, if both of them are moving, then you might have like one time step when they miss each other. And they're not going to see that collision happen. It's not like it's always checking for a collision. There's a couple options you can put on each of those objects. Discrete, continuous dynamic. This is one thing that might help with your collisions. So let me show you some stuff I did just to see how things would work. Got this animation, little bucket, goes and picks up the ball, moves it up, drops it off, misses it, but it did pick it up. It took me a long time to get it to pick it up because it just kept going straight through the box and bouncing. And when I picked up, when it actually did fall in the box, it was in the middle of this cycle. It picked it up and then it swung it up too quickly, and it just went straight through the bottom of it, or it went straight through the wall. So I tried these other options to get it to work. I looked at the sphere itself and said, your collision detection of your rigid body, I made that continuous dynamic. That was one thing. I went to the bucket that I created on its rigid body. I should have also made that continuous dynamic. See if that changed anything. Hopefully it still picks it up. Yes, it does. Oh, but then it dropped it off the bottom. Oh, okay. Sometimes it's just a balancing act to get it right. I don't know why it doesn't work all the time. The other thing I did was to make my object, my sphere, have this nice bouncy material that we talked about before. If the material is not bouncy, then when things hit each other, they're not necessarily going to bounce back from each other. And when things are moving quickly, you want that physics to be, I think, as bouncy as possible. Otherwise, it'll hit, and then things are still going fast. They're going to go through each other, and it's not continually checking for all of those possible collisions. It's just a simulator of physics. I don't know what else to do to get things to collide properly beyond that, but that's made a lot of progress for me to make sure things are picked up. Is anybody else seeing those issues with collisions going straight through them? Have other ideas that you can throw out of how to fix them?
I mean, I just did the stuff that you said, and sometimes slowing down the animation made it better. So.
Yep. So in your animation, what is it? Back in your assets. Let's go to this bucket. My position. There were my curves. There's my X curve. Why are you so big? My Y curve, my Z curve. The steeper these lines are, the faster it's going to be shifting around, and the more frequently I saw everything just smashing through it and just disappearing. So smoothing out your lines can be really helpful. Making your rotations nice and smooth as well. Those are going to be essential. Any other things happening with your Marble Madness machines? Things coming together. Yeah, John.
I've run into a small problem, and this just sort of started happening. I'm not entirely sure why. I have a V for my rail in one section, and the ball will land on the back, start going down a little bit, and then immediately catapult back up against gravity. They're both continuous dynamic for collision detection.
Okay.
Thereabouts.
And the catapulting.
It just starts having a physics. Some force is applied to it somewhere that causes it to fly up against gravity and off the rail.
Okay.
I had an issue similar to that, and it was something to do with the structure underneath it. With, like, if I had something holding the floor, I guess, if some of the objects were too far into it, it would essentially shake, and sometimes the balls would, like, jump and look like they were bouncing out.
If it does detect that the objects are on top of each other, it's going to throw them away. So because of your bouncing as it comes down, it might go in between it and then say, wait a second, these two objects are in the same location. That's physically impossible. Let's throw them around. And if your one object is static and never moving, then the other one gets thrown even more to make the forces balance out. So yeah, it's not perfect. There's a lot of small tweaks you have to do to make things work. Okay, so what I wanted to do today was to talk about prefabs, talk about character controllers, and introduce scripting, and then have time just to check with people, hey, what's going on with your Marble Madness, see where those are happening, answer any last-minute questions about Pachakacha. That's our plan for today. Okay, so let's make that happen. Did anybody get a chance to look at prefabs in that email I sent out? Some of you did, some of you didn't. So it's going to be worth it just to go through them. Let's make a whole new project here. Maze. Okay, here's our standard Unity box. I want to make a maze. That's my goal. I want to make a maze today that you can run around and try to get to the end of the maze. So it's going to involve putting yourself into the game. It's going to involve a lot of repeated elements. Let's see how we can do that. And eventually I want to say, how can I script this maze and have it generated? So, pieces to do that. I am going to first make a wall object. So, let's say here's my game object. This is going to be my wall. I made an empty game object and under 3D object. Let's make a cube. Scale. Let's make it too big. Position 1. 0.2. Sounds good. And I'll put it underneath my wall. So you might have been doing this before, and you're like, okay, I need to make another wall. Copy, paste, move it around to spot 1. But this gets tedious. You have to copy and paste, and you're like, wait a second, I want them both to be changing at the same time. Here's where a prefab can come into play. We've got our project. In our assets, we take our object, drag it down here, and it becomes a prefab, a prefabricated object now that turns blue over here in the hierarchy to say you are really connected to this abstract piece. Walls then can be dragged out as instances of that prefab. It has these subcomponents just like each one does, and when I change this one, it changes all of them. This is really convenient and amazing for what you want to do. Maybe it would be useful back in the Newton's cradle to say I make one of these little swingy things and then I drag them out. Oh, I forgot to change something. I wanted this to be longer. This is how prefabs can help you. And I didn't tell them about you before, so you would see how valuable they are now. Because you have to go through that process sometimes of doing something over and over again, saying that there's got to be a better way, and you're like, yes, there is. Prefabs are the thing you need to really know about, and now you appreciate and love, hopefully, in what they can do. So, change them all however you want, and you can just even say, I want this one to be slightly different. It doesn't affect them all. You can change this one individually. It's still a copy of it, but now if you look at them, you'll notice that this one is bold over here. It says rotation is slightly different than the prefab. It has this extra option up here to say this cube and this wall belong to a prefab. And I could either revert, go back to your prefab settings, or I could take that one and rotate it, and then if I'm manipulating stuff down here, I could say apply this to the prefab. Everybody gets this kind of property that I'm changing. So we can change our objects either down here individually or in the scene itself, moving things around. This is how things should look, updating that prefab, reverting back to the prefab. Of course, now the prefab has been changed. Apply that to everybody. Does that make sense? Okay, and it works really well for those textures. I could say, let's bring in those wall tiles I had. Here's my wall tile and my